We're a top, I don't know, 15 or so, website in the US. And like if you go down that list of the top 15, like in this companies like 10,000 engineers, 20,000 engineers, 10,000 engineers, like 80,000 engineers at some companies. And for us, it's like 70. And so we get a lot done with very few people. And I think that's like the thing that I'm probably most proud of is like how much we're able to accomplish with like a really small team. My name's John Jenkins. Everyone calls me JJ, and I'm the head of engineering at Pinterest.
What do you do at Pinterest?
So like as the head of engineering at Pinterest, I don't know, I think like if you talk to any head of engineering at any tech company in the Bay Area, if they say their number one concern isn't hiring like good engineers, they're lying to you about what their number one concern is. And that's honestly the thing that I spend most of my time thinking about is how are we going to build like a really great team here that's going to be capable of building all the great things for pinners that we want to build. And so I spend a lot of time, thinking about, what skill sets do we need? I spend a lot of time interviewing people, a lot of time reviewing resumes. You have to care about people, and you have to realize that that's your job more than playing with technology is. And so I love computers, right? I love doing all this technical stuff, but at the end of the day, like really my job is about building teams and figuring out how Pinterest as an organization is going to scale. Like when any engineer comes to me and they're like, well, I'm thinking about becoming a manager, like the thing I ask them is, what happens when you're on a project and you're under a ton of stress? Like the deadline is approaching, you don't know if you're going to make it. If your instinct is, I'm going to just go find a quiet corner and I just need to get some time to code and I can get this thing done. Or your instinct might be, I need to figure out how to split this work up and parcel it out among the team and we'll finish this off. If it's the first one of those two things, you're probably not going to be a good manager. If it's the second one of those two things, you're probably going to be a really good manager because it's ultimately about figuring out how to make teams effective, and that requires that you be able to like live vicariously through them in a lot of ways. And when you see them solve a technical challenge, like you need to be able to sort of get some of that excitement yourself, because fundamentally it's not your job to solve the technical challenge, it's your job to enable them to solve the challenge. So. At the same time, I'm kind of a technologist at heart, so I love to still try and play in the technology as much as possible. Like probably the screen's blank, but if you happen by my desk at any time, like you will see like a terminal window open on my computer where I'm like playing around with some data or running some sort of Hive or Hadoop query to try and figure out sort of what's going on in the Pinterest data set. What our pinners are telling us through the boards that they create and the pins that they create. There's just like, it's sort of a double-edged sword. There are so many fascinating questions that you can ask of the data set that you never get finished answering them all. So like everything from like, what's the average number of times a pin gets repinned to, do men pin more than women, to how do like iOS versus Android users vary from each other. Like, these are all questions that if you know the right way to ask the question in Hive and Hadoop, you can get the answer. And it like reveals like totally interesting sort of insights into the world. I'm like an aspiring, maybe data scientist, I guess would be the best way to put it. There are sort of two reasons I ended up at Pinterest. Like one of the reasons was I get really fascinated by challenges associated with scale. Whether scale is like scaling an organization, like growing it from a small number of people to a large number of people, or scaling like technology platforms, right? Pinterest has a really interesting opportunity there. The other thing that I get really fascinated by is figuring out how to use data to do interesting things. And Pinterest has tons of data, right? Our users are creating lots of pins, they're adding them to lots of boards, and like ultimately, like our ability to help people discover new things using those pins and boards will depend on our ability to make use of that data in sort of new and novel ways.
If you can kind of describe like your workspace, how you like to work.
Oh yeah, totally. So like in terms of my space, I don't know, it's pretty sparse. You'll notice around here that most of us don't have like file cabinets or anything. We're a very sort of digital company. Everything lives in, Dropbox or Box or Google Docs somewhere. And we sit like the management team, like Ben, Evan, the CEO, et cetera, we all just sit among all the engineers. Everyone's all just mixed together. And the goal is, we have a company value called knit. And what knit means is that we sort of produce the best output when different disciplines work together. So we try to put designers next to engineers, next to product managers, next to managers, next to press people, so that everyone gets input into what we're building.
What's the biggest challenge that you encounter? What's the biggest pain in the ass about your job?
Biggest pain in the ass. I don't know. Like, I think the biggest challenge is, Pinterest is a really unique company in a very important way. Like, we're this really sort of interesting blend of technology and design. And there are very few companies that have learned how to work together effectively when it comes to technology and design. And I think we're doing it. But designers and engineers have very different points of view on the world oftentimes. And figuring out how to work together really effectively is an interesting challenge. And so we're constantly figuring out ways for sort of these two different disciplines to like really come together and produce an awesome product. And that's multiplied by the fact that we have so many different platforms: the web, iOS, Android, tablets, phones, laptops, TVs, et cetera, where our applications run. And so the number of variations of those technology platforms, the design considerations, and then the technical implementations of how we're going to go about implementing those designs turn out to be a really big challenge.
What keeps you sane?
I have a dog down here. She keeps me sane. Working with really smart people is really important. I would get incredibly bored if there were not a set of people that were way smarter than I was to learn from. Pinterest is such a new company, right? Like, there's just not that much code. Like, I like to say, like, most of what Pinterest will be 2 years from now, like, isn't even written yet. Like, we haven't even created it yet. And so there are lessons to learn from basically everyone in this company. And that's the thing that keeps me sane. Like, any day when I can go home and I've like learned something new and interesting, like, it's a great day.